Hey everybody, this is Jen Kleinhans.
And I'm Rob Vose.
And you're listening to another episode of Everybody Hates Your Brand, a podcast where we talk about our thoughts and opinions on marketing, from customer experience to brand, and everything in between. Join us today as we talk about what makes IKEA great.
So yes, welcome to episode 15. As Jen has said, we are going to be discussing a specific brand, a brand that has come up a lot in the previous 14 episodes. It's been mentioned a few times. This and Peloton, basically.
It's not Peloton.
It's not Peloton, obviously, as you got from the title.
Although it will be next time.
We don't suggest that we're not going to do this again. So the idea for this came actually from a YouTube channel we watch, a chap called Rick Beato, who's a music producer and a musician. And he has a series called What Makes This Song Great, where he takes a particular song and breaks it down. So the melody, the drums, the guitars, the bass, whatever it is, and how they all fit together and work together in musical arrangements. He says, talking about music with a professional musician in the room. But anyway, and kind of tries to deconstruct what makes a song great. We'll link to the channel because there's some really good stuff on there. And we thought, well, why couldn't we apply that to brands as an idea? So this is the first one, and the first one we're going to be talking about is IKEA. I can't believe there isn't anybody who doesn't know who IKEA are, but just in case you don't know, they are a Swedish, although global, but started in Sweden, furniture company.
Yes.
Basically, home furniture, kitchen stuff, home.
So they sell ready-to-assemble furniture, appliances, and home accessories. It started in 1943. I have notes. I'm not just.
Indeed.
I don't just
and
know
Jennifer
all
is
this
going to kind of. We have a conversation here, but Jennifer's going to kind of lead it a little bit because she has written a few articles on IKEA and
one that was really well received, which really surprised me. Sometimes you write these articles and you're like, oh, whatever. This is like, I'll just throw it off. I wrote it in a couple hours. And this one, I don't know, viral's not the right word, but a lot of people really liked it. It got like 500 likes across various social channels and stuff, which for me is a lot.
That's pretty good. So I'm going to hand over to Jen, and I will chip in when I have something relevant to say.
Yeah. Well, listen, I would like to lay this on the line, by the way, because when I was doing research for these articles, I was very perplexed. Is IKEA capital I, capital K, capital E, capital A, or is IKEA capital I, lowercase K-E-A?
It's all caps, isn't it?
It's all caps because it's a...
Acronym.
Acronym. Thank you.
Well, the question is whether it's an acronym or an initialism. So
what is the difference? What is an initialism?
So if I remember rightly, and I've got this from Mark Razzle, friend of the podcast.
Yes.
And I had no idea, and I didn't know about this until like 5 years ago when he mentioned it at DDB.
Okay.
And he said that essentially an acronym is something that spells another word or another thing. So like if it's a Marvel geek, SHIELD is an acronym. For example. But for example, say GDPR would be an initialism.
Because it's not a word.
You can't say it's not a word.
Well, is that? I don't know if IKEA is a Swedish word. It could be. It could mean meatballs in Swedish. I don't know.
And I'm glad that we're delving into the really important.
So we're going to talk a lot about meatballs today.
Of IKEA with whether it's capitals or not, an acronym or initialism. But there you go. So what does it stand for?
Very long Swedish words that we could
Ingvar
probably get.
Kamprad who started it, isn't it? It's the IK.
Yes, Ingvar Kamprad, I believe is how you
I'm so sorry
his
to
name.
anybody, and we do have a couple of people who've downloaded in Sweden. I am genuinely sorry.
I will say
for
too,
any awful mispronunciations we make.
I was very impressed because, like, when I put this article up, sometimes when I write an article, I'll put it in a couple of Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups or whatever, just selfishly to drive traffic. And there were a couple of Swedish people who commented on stuff and added things about IKEA I had no idea.
Fantastic.
Like different like words they have for different sort of like click and carry out and things like that IKEA does that I would have never known had they not gone on and been so passionate about.
Well, thank you.
IKEA. Thank you, nameless commenters.
Yeah.
But yes, so basically it started as sort of this guy had this vision to bring interior design to the masses. And as you all probably know, IKEA furniture is flat-packed. It's what we would call flat-packed. I'll be honest, I'd never heard the word flat-packed until I came to the UK. So in the US, you know IKEA furniture is just a
self-assembly.
box. Yeah, you just assemble it yourself. And interestingly enough, there is actually a behavioral science principle called the IKEA effect. So clearly when I wrote these articles about the psychology of IKEA and why it works so well, that is the first thing I had to pick. So if you don't know what the IKEA effect is, basically it says that people attribute more value to a product they've helped to create. So this idea of like co-creation. And one of the authors of this study is Dan Ariely. I can never say his name right. I should probably figure that out.
Predictably irrational author, yes?
Yes, he's the predictably irrational guy. He's also was at Duke and Harvard and a couple other places. I believe they did this research at Harvard when he was there. But he named the study, like the subtitle was Labor Leads to Love, which I think is a great just little summary. It makes sense, right? So you work on something, you like it more. And basically their experiment came from IKEA assembly. They didn't just randomly name it after IKEA. So when they did the test, they gave two groups IKEA boxes. One group had a fully assembled version of whatever piece of furniture, chair they gave them. And the other group was given unassembled boxes, which they were then told to put together. And the second group was willing to pay much more for their box during a subsequent bidding process than those who just got a pre-assembled box. So, in other words, you put a little bit of yourself into something, it makes you want to interact with it more. But I knew about this next bit, but the second bit I did not know. So there is a whole sort of cottage industry around what's called IKEA hacks. So there's like IKEAhacks.com and all these different places you can go where people have taken that co-creation one step further. So they said, oh, well, not only can I assemble this table, I can assemble this table and I can use some different things I find at the hardware store to make it like a different color or to add a different feature to it or whatever. So IKEA hacks are a big thing. I've never hacked IKEA furniture.
It's kind of like, I don't know, like this created this ecosystem of like apps, you know, like a tech company. You have the backbone of a particular PC game is a good example, but they have a backbone of a PC game and you get all these people creating mods to improve, change, tweak
exactly. It's a mod.
the game. Yeah, it's like a physical mod,
But there's also, I did not know this, that there are spin-off businesses that design accessories to augment IKEA furniture. So one of the companies that I discovered during the research for this article was a company called Semi-Handmade out of the US. So it's all one word. If you want to check it out, we'll link to it in the show notes. But actually they make custom doors that are compatible with IKEA cabinets. So like this is a difference between like the US and Europe I've really found. I've never seen an IKEA kitchen in the wild. Looking for houses for sale, friends with houses. Like it's probably more common in a place like New York City or something where it's small and compact. But if you come to the UK, like when Rob and I were looking for a house, that's a whole nother story, for quite some time. Over a year.
The story that
we're still looking.
No end. Yeah,
still looking. I would say 80% of the kitchens we saw were IKEA kitchens. I don't
a lot
think
of them certainly.
Yeah, I mean,
well, the flat that we're currently
noticed,
renting has an IKEA kitchen.
Yeah, the flat that we're renting has an IKEA kitchen, and basically, you know, because they have, and we'll talk about this in a second, but because IKEA has limited like the amount of products that they have and the series that they do, and they've standardized a lot of things, you can have a company like Semi-Handmade that says like, okay, if you have you know, this particular set of cabinets, like you might, the configuration might be slightly different, but if the cabinets are already installed and you just want to like zhuzh it up a little bit, then you can get these custom doors on top of the IKEA stuff. And because, you know, in the US, I'm sure there's a fair amount, but like in Europe especially, there's a ton. It's a nice way to get sort of like a custom kitchen look without ripping everything out.
It's kind of in a way, again, another example, parallel, like car mods. So, you know, if you buy a particular car, there are aftermarket kits, different things you can do. Like if you buy a Beamer, you can get different things, different front ends, different, you know, to customize it to your... It's really clever in that regard that you kind of just, you can keep the bones and completely refresh it by, you know, taking off the doors and putting some new ones on and things like that.
Well, it's an interesting thought too, because, you know, the reason that I noticed that so many of the houses that we looked at here and continue to look at like online and stuff have IKEA kitchens is because they look identical, basically. Like you can spot an IKEA kitchen. Once you know it's IKEA, you're like, oh, I've seen this 5 or 6 times because it does look very similar. But I think this is a good way to have something that's a little bit like, oh, it's a little different.
Yeah.
But the same
Absolutely,
but different.
all using the same bones,
Right. So interestingly, in terms of like how the IKEA effect or this co-creation effect has helped grow the brand. So there is an advertising agency or consulting firm, depending on how you want to classify it, in London called Iris. So IRIS. They may have some, I think they do have some offices in the US, but I think their headquarters are here in London. And they've created something called a brand participation brand index. Sorry. And basically, according to their research, which take it all with a grain of salt, because there's a lot of self-selected research running around in ad agencies and consulting firms and things. Businesses that encourage co-creation with customers outperform their competition. So according to Iris, they said if you had invested in the top 20 brands in the Participation Brand Index over 3 years, they would have seen 4x, so 400%, higher return on investment than investing in brands at the bottom of the ranking. Now, again, I'm going to caveat this with...
given we went that whole episode
self-selection.
about self-selection and the whole episode about brand purpose.
Everybody
and how
read The
badly
Halo
flawed
Effect.
That was.
The Halo Effect will crack your mind open, and you will just see things in a very different way. But the second thing the point that they made, because I don't want to, as far as I could tell, it seemed like a okay process. But according to them, investing in the top 10 brands in the Participation Brand Index over 3 years would yield a return 2x, so 200% higher than the S&P 500 average. Mm-hmm. So the S&P being the big one.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yes. So I think, that's something you can't really mention IKEA without kind of going into like the psychological effect around why people love it so
and
much.
let's not forget that there's an economic reason too, which is getting people to build their own stuff is cheap, means you can sell it cheaper.
Yeah.
And it means you can store more stuff in one spot.
Yes.
Because the volume is so much
Economies of scale.
Smaller in terms of, a desk in a flat pack is a lot smaller than a desk when it's built as well. So it's kind of a nice confluence of practical and psychological stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that you talk about that. So in terms of like behavioral science or psychology, it's talking about the choice overload effect or the choice paradox. This idea that like some choice is good, but too much choice is not good. So if you look at all the research, I'm summarizing a lot here, but basically like if you have a few things to choose from. So for instance, like a lot of IKEA furniture is gray, black, white, and oak. They have that like fake oak looking stuff. Some things come in like blue or green or red or whatever, but it's kind of few and far between.
Limited.
Yeah. So it's a limited choice, which is good in a way. There is some relatively strong research around this idea of like choice overload and this idea that if you have a lot of choices, people will browse. So a lot of choices is like peacock feathers, right? It's like, oh, look, I can go in and I can look at every single thing. But if all of a sudden you look at every single sweater and every single sweater comes in 50 colors, that's too many. It's overwhelming. And people are more likely to kind of, pull the trigger on a sale if there's fewer choices.
Yes.
And in fact, according to research from Episerver, and I'm sure there's if you guys know any other research around this, but this is what I found. 46% of customers have failed to complete a purchase due to overwhelming choice. And that is self-identified. So imagine how many people have just not chosen anything and not known that's the reason.
Well, I mean, we went into this, we did a podcast about behavioural science, didn't we?
Yes.
And this is one of the big effects that we talked about. So there's a lot more detail in there, but I think you're absolutely right. There is a certain... it sort of sets a certain expectation. If I go to IKEA, I know I'm going to be able to just get it creates a certainty,
and everything matches in your house.
And again,
nice.
from their perspective, I doubt they did it with that psychological thing in mind.
Yes,
but from their perspective, it's a cost for economies of scale. We can produce lots of different. We've got one of those shelving units downstairs that
big
are just
square,
the
white.
square ones.
Yeah.
We've got a 4x4 one. Which I think most of Jen's annoyance has all my CDs and DVDs and Blu-rays. Yes, I still buy physical media. But there's millions of different versions of those, and different sizes. But there's only, I think it's white, as you said, white, oak, black, and whatever it was.
Yeah.
So the economies of scale they can get by reusing parts, reusing different things, and keeping things simple was probably where it started from. And then they're happy. They've realised, well, if we can't add too much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's interesting that. I was reading through a couple of articles. It didn't end up in my articles, but I found an interesting point around how they design their furniture. They actually decide on the price point first.
Do they really?
Yes, because value is such a big part of their brand that they make a decision that this is going to cost however many euro or dollars or whatever. And then they figure it out from there. So it could be that you've got something that's cheap to produce and maybe it comes in 5 colors instead of 2 because they can afford the variety of product. But just the other point around decision and choice. So Procter and Gamble, so the big old CPG or FMCG, depending on where you're from, company found that a decrease in the variety of Head and Shoulders shampoos resulted in a 10% increase in revenue. And a lot of in the wild sort of like live brand research has found if you have fewer varieties of a brand, a lot of times it'll increase sales because people again, we'll pull the trigger on a sale versus just kind of standing there and thinking like, oh no, what if I make the wrong choice? I'd rather make a different choice than the wrong choice in this particular choice set.
Cool. I wish toothpaste manufacturers would bear that in mind.
Toothpaste manufacturers are
on
a different planet.
Yeah. Anyway.
With razor manufacturers.
Yeah.
8 razors.
Yes. Okay, so what else have you got in terms of their success and what drives their success?
Well, listen, I think it would be remiss of me to not talk about...
Oh, I know where this is going.
Swedish meatballs.
Yes.
And listen, I don't know if I've always wanted to eat in an IKEA because I feel like this is less about you and I, but in other relationships, because, you tend to, if you've seen IKEA couples, this is not in any of my research, this is just observational.
It's anecdotal data.
It's true. It's anecdotal. But if you go into IKEA, a lot of times it's like they've dropped the kids into like the play kid area or whatever, or they don't have kids. Usually it's that. Like in the U.S., I've noticed is like younger and they're like city dwelling, couples who inevitably at the beginning, usually the female in the couple is like, oh, look at this, look at that. And for the first first stage of IKEA, you sort of see the male partner go like, oh yeah, okay,
trying to engage,
match with this. By the time they make it to the second or the third one, it's either an all-out argument about everything, or it's you think this rug would go with the thing, and they're just an eye roll and just I don't know, and, they just do not care. They're tapped out.
What
but
on earth are you accusing me of?
We're I think much better, but a lot of times by the time you get to the cafeteria in IKEA, which is like in the middle of the experience, if I don't think there's anything worse I could ask than for me to ask Rob to please can I experience Swedish meatballs one time in this IKEA?
Well, now I just feel like a monster.
It's like the Costco hot dog. I always want the Costco hot dog, and I always look at it and I'm like, it's a legendary like business thing. I'm gonna get this Costco hot dog. If you don't know, Costco has kept like the price of their hot dog and a soda like consistent since they opened, like in the 60s. This is like $1.25 or whatever, or £1.50 here, I think. But I always want it and I never get it. So like Swedish meatballs are the hot dog to Costco. That's my fault. No, I know, but that one's never your fault. But I do also feel like by the time we're done with Costco, you like want to get out.
Well, who doesn't? I mean,
me. I like Costco. Oh. I mean, anyway, now it's a little different given all the precautions that you have to take in store and everything. But one day I will eat a Costco hot dog, and one day I will eat an IKEA Swedish meatball.
Where we live in the UK, there is a Costco and an IKEA within 2 junctions on the motorway. Or freeway, however you want to describe that.
2 exits on the interstate.
2 exits on the interstate, yeah, but two junctions on the motorway. So one day I can't believe I'm saying this on the record.
What?
But we will go to IKEA and you can eat your nonsense meatballs, and then
I just want to try them.
We'll go then and have the hot dog. Anyway, why is the food important?
Sorry, the food is important. I think for a few reasons, right? So, did you know that IKEA is actually the 10th largest food retailer in the world? So, like, if you talk about, like, big competitors of IKEA, they might be places like, Burger King or McDonald's or whatever. Like, people... So, again, anecdotally, a lot of people I've talked to or read in articles who have kids will say, my kids always ask me to go to IKEA and eat the meatballs. That blew my mind. I was like, really? I can't believe people would ask to go to IKEA. But listen, I love IKEA, but I don't know if I would want to make it like a lunch destination. But I guess if you have kids, you can let them run around and have fun and everything. And you get some cheap meatballs, and then, or what, I'm sure they serve other things, but obviously they're best known for meatballs. But it's interesting too, because they make, so in 2017, the company made $2.24 billion from food sales in the cafeteria. That is not like...
I bet the margins are good as well.
Yeah, the margins are really good. So apparently there is an article that we'll link to in Fast Company where Gerd Diewald, I'm going to assume is his name. I apologize for pronunciation, obviously. He was the former head of IKEA food operations, told Fast Company, we've always called the meatballs the best sofa seller. When you feed them, the customers, they stay longer, they can talk about potential purchases, and they make a decision without leaving the store. So I assume there is some serious debate happening around. Should we get this I don't want to like make up a name for. I don't want to offend Swedish people.
No,
by
should we get this
up an
bookcase
IKEA
or that
furniture.
one? Let's go with that.
This
shall we?
bookcase or that bookcase.
Well, apparently Ingvar Kamprad was widely known for
Hermes.
saying you can't do
Hermes.
business with someone on an empty stomach. So it was actually his idea.
Yes.
The in-store cafe was actually his idea. I
Yes.
read somewhere that they sell more than 1 billion Swedish meatballs each year.
I mean, that's a lot of Swedish meatballs.
Oh, it is.
And I gotta be honest, like it makes me curious. According to the company's research, 30% of its shoppers come into the stores just to eat. Imagine how busy an IKEA is on a weekend. 3 out of 10 of those people are just there for the meatballs. Like, out of my face furniture, no more.
And it's the price again. There's an element of price, quality versus price. I think it's cheap. It's cheap food.
It is indeed.
It's not. I mean, it's not the best quality. I think there's a quote here from a guy, Dimitrios, who lives in New York City, visiting IKEA. Called the food surprisingly decent. It falls somewhere between cafeteria food and actual restaurant quality.
Oh,
But nonetheless, my salmon fillet platter cost me $6.99. So there's
that's not bad.
a key thing there. There's also, I think, they bake as well. And there's quite an interesting question once you get into like smell as a sense
Yes.
as well, which is quite an interesting thing. That you can create nice smells and good smells, which is why in a bakery they always pump the smell of bakery into supermarkets and all that kind of stuff, isn't it?
Makes
It
you
smells
happy.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, throw an element of that in there as well. But I think you're right that as a way of driving people into the store and keeping them there and keeping them thinking, it's a really smart move.
Yes. Agreed.
Did you have anything else you wanted to kind of cover off from a psychology perspective? Because I think there's a few other sort of...
There's a few other things. I mean, I think the other sort of memorable thing about going to IKEA is the fact that like you're in this maze that you can't escape. You can escape it. If there's an emergency, you can get out of there. Like there are places to cut off the different sort of ways that you go through an IKEA. But basically, there's two features of the store layout that are, I think, very conducive to like a business environment. So like their retail experience. One is the one-way system, and the second is the circular design. So like if you go into an IKEA, they've got the little arrows on the floor that you follow around and you do, kind of like the plan. And an IKEA is big. An average IKEA is 300,000 square feet. It is the size of 5 American football fields. That's
big.
a lot. So if you go into a store and let's say you're walking by the lamps and you know that this is a one-way system and you know that you're going to have to walk 5 American football fields. I mean, hundreds of thousands of feet or whatever it is. It's a hike. If you don't put this lamp in the cart and just sort of overcome your objections for this like 5-pound lamp and put it in the cart, that drives a lot of sales.
Consequence, yes.
It's this idea of scarcity. So Robert Cialdini is a professor who wrote a book called Influence, which you should read if you have not. He said, when our freedom to have something is limited, the item becomes less available and we experience an increased desire for it. I would say when our freedom to have something is limited by the fact that we're going to have to walk for 25 minutes to get it again, our desire increases tenfold, because really I don't want to do all of that. But yeah, so this idea of, IKEA stores using this one-way traffic system, creating that feeling of scarcity, and this design sort of forces people to put any item that kind of catches their eye into the cart. And if you're like me, you have quite a bit of shame of, that the next 10 feet to the cash register, and you're like, I don't really want this lamp, but I don't want to walk all the way back. But I don't want to have all these people see me put this lamp
And it's cheap
here.
enough that I don't have to...
And it's $5.
Yeah.
I think it's worth the embarrassment to just put it down. But this idea then is once it's in the cart, you're much less likely to like change your mind.
Yeah.
And that is down to something called the endowment effect. Now, there's like loss aversion, a few different things. The endowment effect is interesting in that it says or states that people place a higher value on items that they own or they intend to buy. And what I mean by intend to buy is basic. And look, I mean, it depends on the product and everything. But if you put something in your cart, on some level, it's a pair of shoes. You're imagining the outfit that you're going to wear this pair of shoes with. Maybe it's a party. Maybe you'll meet somebody at that party. Maybe you're going to have a good time. Maybe you're going to dance. You're going to drink. Oh my God, life would be perfect if just I could have these shoes to go with this outfit. And this idea sort of creates like an emotional bond. So this like future imagined, experiences with this product are, something that I want to experience. And in fact, the research was done with Duke University basketball tickets. The UNC Duke game, if anyone is a American college basketball fan, is a wild time. And the tickets go for a lot of money. And you usually have to be put into a lottery system. So again, our dude, Dan, our predictably irrational friend, he is the one who did a lot of this experimentation and, was at Duke University, so he knew that Duke UNC was quite an event.
UNC, for those who don't know, is University of North Carolina.
University of North Carolina, where I went to high school, weirdly. So,
Okay.
went to high school at university. That's a long story. Anyway, but yeah, so this idea that, like, once you start imagining what a good time you're going to have at the game, you say, okay, well, I'll give you these tickets, but I'm going to give you these tickets for $10,000, as opposed to somebody who, maybe never had them in their hand and never had thought about or made plans or do whatever. I'll give them to you, like, for $1,500, $2,000.
Yeah, in terms of what they're prepared to pay versus what they're prepared to sell for.
Exactly.
If they haven't got it and they have got it. I think there's a couple of sort of quite simple things as well. One of the things that I find with IKEA is, if I want something today, I know I can get it. And if my car's big enough, I can get it home.
Yeah.
A lot of stores, especially if I'm buying online, or a lot of stores in general, furniture stores in general, they don't necessarily carry the stock with them. You have to order it and wait for it to be delivered and all those kind of things. If you have a sudden panic situation that you need a futon, don't know why you'd have a panic, you need a futon.
Listen, maybe you have in-laws coming in and you have no place to put them and all the hotels are full.
But that
Emergency
ability to sort of frictionless thing, it's not frictionless because you've got to go and get it, but you've got less hurdles almost to jump over to get that thing into your house in an immediate sense, which I think is really important. From a marketing perspective, I think they do some really interesting things. They've been with the same agency for a very, very long time, like more than 5 years. Mother.
Sorry, I can't do it without thinking about that Darren Aronofsky.
Yeah, Mother. There's a film I'm never watching. It looks absolutely bonkers.
Anyway.
But the idea that they've stuck with this agency for a very long time, so that agency now knows them and they know the agency. They know not to mess with certain things, so they have brand codes that they don't mess with colours and fonts, and
they're also
the
just a
Swedish
really great
flag,
agency.
obviously blue and yellow, and there are things that make IKEA's branding iconic that they don't touch. And that font, is always the same. They've stuck with the same tagline now since about 2017, which is the wonderful everyday. So the goal behind that was to inject joy into daily scenarios. That IKEA can help. Injecting joy sounds weird, but anyway, that
God,
that kind of
inserting
consistency, Jennifer.
I'm just trying to think of different ways to say injecting joy.
That kind of consistency, I think,
apologize, IKEA.
is something that is I think missing in a lot of places. People want to chop and change.
Yeah.
New marketing director comes in, a new
Consistency
agency.
is very important, and playing with brand codes is also incredibly important. And I think when we talked about that, the print stuff, which I'll be honest, I don't know if Mother did that or not, because they're the above the line agency.
The sleep stuff, yeah.
They did the sleep stuff. Okay, cool, because it's amazing. Where they've got, like, I don't know how to describe exactly, like nighttime products that are turned into other products, like a duvet that's like in a big thing of like sleep cream or whatever.
So the tagline for it was "Tomorrow starts tonight."
Yeah, which is
so
great.
it was like a pill bottle open with natural supplements, and it's pillowcases that's spilling out. There's a jar of the most natural anti-aging remedy, and it's got a duvet in it. It looks like cream coming out of it. We'll post the links to the images, but I think they do some really smart stuff, and you look at it and you know instantly it's IKEA.
Yeah.
So I think that consistency in the brand codes, all that stuff, the fluency that they build up as a brand is really important. And the other thing I think that they're doing at the moment is they're investing. They're not standing still. So I was reading an article where, again, I'll post it for Marketing Week, and they're talking about the things what they're investing in right now. So they're trying to improve their digital presence and their website and delivery and all that.
It could be better. It's not terrible, but it could be better.
No.
Everything could be.
They're trying to improve their delivery options. And I've always thought IKEA delivery is pretty good, but they're trying to get even better. And the showrooms. So obviously, most IKEAs, because of the absolute monstrous scale of them, are out of town or in out of town retail parks or whatever have you. But in places like New York City and what have you, they're bringing in showrooms into city centres.
Yeah, because you used to have to travel.
Exactly, which I think is really clever, and then tie that into the digital and delivery stuff. And they've even said that we're expecting lower profits over the next few years because we're going to be heavily investing in this, which I always think is a sign of a good brand that transparently comes out and says we need to overinvest here and we're going to do that, which I think is also really, really kind of a smart thing for them. The other thing I thought we talked about the store environment was it creates a context. Most stores, furniture stores, and I could be talking out of term, I haven't bought furniture for a while. IKEA shows the products in context. They set up a fake kitchen, they set up a fake living room, they set up a fake bedroom or whatever it is, and then they show how those products can sit within a context, give you design ideas, all those sort of things. And obviously you're walking past them on the one-way system of doom. So, which should be a travelator, I think. Or at least there should be lanes for slow walkers and fast walkers. Because, my God. Anyway, the idea of that context, I think, is really important because it allows your brain to see something and give you some ideas, which I think is also really crucial. So we've covered a lot of things there. A lot of practical things, a lot of brand things, a lot of psychological things that make IKEA as successful as they are.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing I would say is having put up this article and gotten a lot of feedback. There was some mean feedback about IKEA.
I know.
There were some things that people don't like about IKEA. Mostly it has to do with their environmental footprint. Environmental footprint, there you go, if I can enunciate. Which I think... it's maybe worth kind of using to tie this up a little bit. And that I think is not something that they've come out and said, like, we want to address, though they have talked about sustainability a lot. So, like, I think what they're doing in true brand style is kind of looking to the future and thinking about things like their recycling or buyback schemes.
Yes, we forgot to mention that. We talked about that the other week, didn't we?
We talked about that in a different podcast, but this idea that you can bring in old furniture and they'll take care of recycling it and do all that, and then they'll give you credit towards new furniture, I think is really good. But yeah, sustainability has become a real tenet of the brand, kind of moving forward. So that's why, excuse me, I have getting a lot of these comments on the articles. Like,
well, it's a similar kind of concept to the fast fashion thing, isn't it? In terms of cheap fashion. So if you're a Primark or whoever it is, and I don't know who the equivalent would be in America, but if you're a brand that's selling really cheap stuff that's
H&M,
disposable, that's not great. From a sort of, I guess, the furniture equivalent of that, isn't it? But they do a lot of other things, focusing on diversity in their advertising and all that kind of stuff. They're making some improvements there.
They're making some good strides forward. So again, like, I think any discussion around IKEA, like, you do have to acknowledge the fact that, like, because they are the world's largest furniture brand and because of the nature of the cheap furniture, self-assembled, all of that, I think it is an obvious critique. I mean, no offense to these commenters. Like, they weren't exactly trolling. I think they were making a good point. Yeah. But, like, what a hot take. IKEA wastes a lot of furniture. And I think they get it. They've acknowledged it. And they're really changing and making some good improvements kind of moving forward. So that's good. So that's it for this episode of Everybody Hates Your Brand. We hope you enjoyed it. You can find show notes, resources, and more episodes on our website, everybodyhatesyourbrand.com. But before we go, let's leave on a positive note, and let's share what we're loving right now. So, Rob, what you got this week?
Well, I found an article that popped up into one of my many and varied sort of feeds. Forbes magazine, written by a chap called Dr. Augustine Fou. F-O-U. Anyway, he's a digital marketer of 25 years, and very pointedly he says at the end of his bio, "Now I audit campaigns for fraud."
Oh my.
And the headline is called "How FOMO and FOFO."
What is FOFO?
We'll come to that. Sapped marketers' budgets. So what he's talking about is obviously the massive expansion in social and in digital display and that kind of stuff. And the idea that we've talked about this idea before, that we are as a discipline magpies for shiny new things. We like the new and we like the shiny, and people start jumping onto new things and what have you. And they, fear of missing out. The FOMO part it's about that. It's about people who are kind of buying ad tech, or as he describes it, ad tech snake oil, from programmatic ads placed on millions of long tail sites to privacy invasive surveillance marketing where tons of data are gathered for the purpose of hyper targeting ads, one fool's gold after another, resulting in what I consider to be a lost decade of digital marketing. So he's quite and obviously this guy spent a lot of time investigating fraud, that a lot of the clicks anyway that you get on Reel and etc.
Yeah,
it's a really interesting talk, and he gives some really interesting further readings of the problems with that. But the one I thought was really interesting when we talk about psychology was FOFO. So FOFO, fear of finding out. So the fear of finding out bit is that there's a kind of inertia created by people who maybe realised, and they've invested in all this stuff, maybe realise now that it isn't working, that they don't want to embarrass themselves.
It's a sunk cost fallacy.
Sunk cost fallacy, exactly. This idea that I've spent so much of my own emotional, mental sort of capital. Yeah. I've also spent probably a lot of money from an agent, from a client perspective, and those kind of things.
Yeah.
But actually, I can't now say, actually, I'm kind of made a cataclysmic mistake. So it said the same fear of finding out is now keeping many marketers from looking more closely at the efficacy of their digital marketing, digital programmatic spending. It would be embarrassing if they found out that it was less effective than originally promised by the ad tech companies. It would be embarrassing to find out the fraud detection tech they used didn't find most of the bots and other forms of fraud that weren't bots. It would be embarrassing to find out that 100% viewable inventory came from sites that tricked the detection instead of real mainstream publishers that didn't cheat. So there's a whole bunch of interesting stuff where he talks about this idea now that almost there's a level of inertia that is people throwing good money after bad. And that's the sunk cost fallacy, is keeping people spending money. It's a really interesting article, and it's got some really interesting links out for extra reading. So I'll post it in the and in this world of confirmation bias, it played into my confirmation bias about programmatic. So
it's a tough one.
There is that. What did you have, Jen?
So I'm going to do a little bit of shilling, because you know what? What is good? What good is it to have a podcast?
You know, it's never beneath you to shill stuff.
Listen, don't punish me for marketing.
Trying to make a living, man.
Yes, marketing what I spend every weekend and evening doing.
That is true.
So yes, some of you might know, some of you might not, why I keep banging on about behavioral science and psychology and all that stuff is because I wrote a book called Choice Hacking, which the aim of which is to kind of educate people on the fundamentals of behavioral science, and we've talked about it a little bit. There's some frameworks in there and some things, and it's been really well received. It's sold a bunch of copies.
Yeah,
I mean, for me.
I mean, I've read it. Obviously, it's a good book.
A lot of people have reached out and said some really, really nice things. But there is a website for Choice Hacking, which was recently, by recently I mean over the last couple of weeks, into the evening and all over the weekends, retooled and repositioned by me. And so now Choice Hacking, we're lucky enough, look, I have thousands of people on the mailing list I get to talk to every week when I send out the emails and things, and they all have nice things to say. And one of the things that people were asking for, and I really saw a need for, was more content. So now I'm so excited to share that the website has now pivoted. We are now on a membership model. We have a course coming out in January. A lot of really exciting things. So if you are someone who deals with customer experiences, so that might be a digital experience or a physical retail experience, if you're a marketing manager, if you are someone who works in startups as an entrepreneur, just basically wants to figure out the difference between what people say and what they do, and to use behavioral science and psychology to do that, then you should check out choicehacking.com. You should check out, we have a monthly membership, which is really great. It's $7.99 a month. US dollars, apologize. That's just how we did it. And you can go in, you can get access to what we call the content vault. You can have, eventually we will set up an exclusive Facebook group once we get to a few dozen people. And a lot of sort of exclusive content and stuff that I put on there where we go into things like we went into today, where we talk about psychology behind brands and use cases and fundamental principles. And people seem to really enjoy it. I really like doing it. It's fun. We also have an annual membership that'll get you free access to all the courses that we have, and at the moment we have 2. We have a customer journey mapping course, which also is across my other website, and then we've got the new one that's coming out, How to Create Persuasive Experiences, in January. So yes, I'm shilling. I apologize. Sometimes, listen, you put a lot of work into something. Sometimes the thing that you love this week is a thing that you did, and what good is it having a podcast if I cannot use it to shamelessly direct people to my projects? So.
Exactly right.
Well, you did it. You've wasted another perfectly good half an hour or so with Rob and Jen and the Everybody Hates Your Brand podcast. Again, you can find us on everybodyhatesyourbrand.com and your podcast platform of choice. Have a week.
Take great care and be vigilant.